Grace and peace, family. I believe we are live. Grace and peace. Can you all hear and see me okay? This is your sister with the curly braids, Vicki Dillard. I am so pleased to be with you today. And I'm so excited because we have an absolutely wonderful and exciting guest with us on the Vicki Show. Family, I do have a little bit of a ritual before I introduce our absolutely amazing guest with you today. I'm just checking to make sure I can see us on live. Yes, we are live, and we are live. It's officially started. So we'll take a minute to get kicked in here for it to get to the algorithm so folks will know that we're live, family. But as you come in, be sure to come in giving us a big thumbs up, thumbs up. Be sure to like and be sure to share, of course, in modern alternative media. We ask that you do that because it helps to activate the algorithm so that more notifications are sent out. How many of y'all know that it's so important, especially when you're dealing with voices like ours, topics like ours, where this sort of information is blocked in many, many ways. And so we want you to be very intentional about helping us overcome some of those blocks. Yes. And we never underestimate the power of our voice. Yes, family. Everybody be sure to give us a big thumbs up, and share. Family. Now, I want to get ready to introduce to us our very, very special guest. He is based out of the UK. I know you all know I talk about that all the time. Our dear brother, who is a very powerful, very powerful journalist and media spokesperson, among many other things. Yes. So, family, would you please put your hands together for my British brother, Richard Sudan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, Vicki. I'm doing great, Vicki. I hope you are too. And you know what? From the heart, it's always an honor, a pleasure, productive, spiritual, powerful talking to you. So I've been looking forward to this latest conversation for a minute now, Vicki.
Awesome. Same here. And I'm so excited that you're with us today. Since a young girl, always knew that I would be dealing with international issues. And over the years, long before I came to social media, had direct connections, interests, sponsorships that I actually was a part of, and supported all over the world. And in fact, one of the Black emissaries that went into multiple countries throughout the continent of Africa, throughout, of course, North America, but certainly throughout South America, the Caribbean, all of that as well. Someone that has certainly traversed throughout Europe, too many countries. Actually, she's one of the Black women that's been to more countries. I saw sometime back this sister that was said to have, I don't know if it's the Guinness Book of World Records or something, where she visited the most countries, but we don't.
One Spots.
You know her?
Yeah, everyone knows about One Spots. Yeah, big up One Spots.
The reason I say that because my dear sister, Dr. Bailey is her name. A lot of people don't know the number of countries she's been to, but I have been with her for a long time, and so I mentioned that because she's been doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and including throughout the Middle East. And I had direct financial supporter of a lot of those initiatives. So long before I came online. So I'm bringing that up because whenever I get on international topics, especially when I'm talking to some of my family, they wonder where some of this started. But I've been involved in these sorts of things long before I ever came online. And so I bring that up because I want you to give us a bit of perspective. And I want to tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do. I see some folks are coming on in. Miss Melanie, who is this? Lolly, Divine Abundance. Can everybody hear and see me okay? Looks like we just had a little glitch there. Richard, can you hear and see me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. So can everybody see me okay? Okay. People are saying, what happened? I went out for a minute. Okay. Yes. Okay. Folks are saying they can see me now. Okay, even my team's asking me what happened. I'm not sure what the issue with this has been, but anyway, we're back. Let me get started because I don't want to waste any. I don't want to waste any time, family. Okay, Richard, tell us, number one, who in the world are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
Sorry, excuse me. So my name is Richard Sudan. Excuse me.
No problem.
I'm a journalist out of the UK. I'm a journalist for The Voice newspaper, which is the UK's only black national newspaper. Although, excuse me, Vicky.
No, but take a sip of water, family. Take your time. Everybody.
So I'm a journalist at The Voice newspaper. Although I hasten to add, I'm speaking my own words today. I'm not speaking for any organization I'm affiliated with. But I've been a journalist, commentator, media figure, activist, musician for many years now, kind of 15 plus years. So yeah, that's
wow. Me. Now, did you say musician? Now, we hadn't talked about that. After all this time, what in the world? How did I not know that?
So I was meant to be a rapper. I still do music. I'm still writing, but I kind of veered off. Basically, give it a short story. I kind of got, I was on the scene, active in spoken word poetry, music for a long time. Yeah. And then gradually I kind of got invited onto more and more media platforms. And that's kind of how I got into journalism, although I've been writing in the media for many, many years. But yeah, the plan was always to kind of veer into music, but I kind of veered off the last few years, but soon come. There's some music in the works. So.
Wow. I cannot believe I didn't know that. I've definitely got to talk to you about that behind the scenes then. I love that so much. Family, give us a big thumbs up and share the broadcast. Thank you so very much. Wonderful, wonderful. Now, Richard, I want to start by saying this. The reason why I started off the broadcast talking about my international connections over the years, long before I came online, because what I learned over the years through my intricate interests, I should say, is not even just about my individual expertise as much as it is about others that I will sit down and listen to. What I learned is that there were so many moving parts to what's happening in the United States and their interconnection to things happening around the world. That for me was absolutely very clear and undeniable. One of the things, Richard, that I discussed in times past, many, many times before, when this took place a few years ago, this Israeli consul, I'm sure you're very familiar with who she is, Judith Varney Shore. I won't show the clip right now because I've done multiple broadcasts in the past as well as in the recent future. And I did even privately, because these sorts of topics are often, as you know, often taboo and restricted, unfortunately, for telling the truth, even though there is no hate intended. And of course, we know that this is a part of the propaganda to ensure that the powers that shouldn't be, that their true agenda isn't exposed, who they really are isn't exposed, so they can continue to operate covertly. So I say all that to say I've done several private webinars in great, great detail about some of these forces that have been operating here in the United States, particularly by and through Black Americans, specifically foundational Black Americans, as many of us are known. But also these same forces have a geopolitical history that is extraordinarily complex if you're not paying attention. It's not once we start actually paying attention. Well, I get into great details about this. I rarely talk about this kind of stuff in detail online so that I'm not unnecessarily censored. So I want to let folks know about that. So my team is going to be putting my replay list, Brother Richard, that I just did this past Monday. It was almost 4 hours. OMG. It was almost 4 hours. And it was about the connection between the domestic civil war that we're no doubt seeing Donald Trump unveil. And I initially and immediately connected it to Israel and Netanyahu. Now, that's before Charlie Kirk's murder. And so there was a very specific reason I was guided to do that. Yes, thank you to my team. You all should see the link in there now for the replay for almost 4 hours, family. Whenever we hear about different governments having war room sessions, Richard, I call it a war room session sometimes, my spiritual war room session, so we can get into great detailed information that's pretty heavy. And I use some very strong resources, and I interconnect metaphysical, spiritual, political, and international points in there. So that's what makes it a very unusual thing. But one of the things I want to get back to, I brought that up, but I want to let everybody know that I go into great detail if you want to, okay? Because you all know that we only go so far on some of these online platforms, is why I'm bringing that up. So that's, so if you want to get great detail, heavy receipts, I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. The link is in the chat. That's why I brought that up. Brother Richard, this is one of the, article headlines that I want to talk about, because I'm not going to show the video because I've shown it many times before. I'm just going to get into the substance and remind folks of this headline from a while ago as a reference, and then I want you to jump in here shortly, okay? But I'm going to lay the groundwork really quick. What does it say? The Israeli effort to influence the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, I want y'all to listen to this. This is from the Pasadena Journal, family. Quote, y'all know I've discussed this many times before over the years and in recent history, and I'm doing it again today for a reason. Quote, the major problem with Israel is with the young generation of the Black community. Specifically, they were talking about the Black youth in the United States of America. This was said by who? Proclaimed by Judith Varney Shore, the Israeli consul general that was in Atlanta. While this statement, it says here, may sound like the opening line of a politically charged thriller, it is, in fact, a real and sobering revelation that deserves our attention. In a world where fact often eclipses fiction, the leaked footage, and this is what I often emphasize over the years, the leaked footage, because they never meant for you all to know this, from a censored what? Documentary on Israeli influence in the United States unfolds like a plot line from a gripping novel laced with irony and complexity. Now, the reason why I wanted to start with that, Brother Richard, is because too often we will say, what do these international issues have to do with me? I'm emphasizing that this is a conversation that was never meant to be public. But you have to ask yourself this question: what is an international affiliate, official, a former high-level governmental consul? By the way, I researched her before. She held many other ambassadorial type positions and jobs before she held that one, by the way, but that's another story. Why would she be secretly plotting, specifically, family, against Black Americans? Now, they're using Black Lives Matter as a cover for that. Of course, I've had many issues with Black Lives Matter because there's some elements of it that's, you know, that were actually placed there by suspect individuals. Certain elements of Black Lives Matter has certainly been hijacked and misused on purpose. We found out there was FBI infiltration in some parts of it right here in Colorado some years ago. So some of our criticism about them is very clear, but I don't want to conflate all elements of all the chapters and all of the individuals, most importantly with Black Lives Matter, with certain elements that served as a threat to high-level government Israeli officials. So to the degree that we choose to not understand what's going on will be the degree it's going to serve to expedite our own demise. So, Brother Richard, that was concerning to me, obviously. So I talked about, this is a country that is said to be our ally in the Middle East, the only democracy in that place they call the Middle East, but they're plotting, Brother Richard, against a large group of Black American citizens. If we take the word Black out of it, they were plotting against a large element of Black Americans, yes? But Brother Richard, our Congress failed to do one hearing about it. Brother Richard, the Congressional Black Caucus, which is supposed to be a caucus that's representative of Black Americans, they met with Netanyahu almost 1 month to the day of October 7th of 2023. Even when Joe Biden refused to meet with him. Even when other white Democrats refused to meet with him. And even as quietly as it's kept, Republicans were keeping their distance somewhat from Netanyahu at that time. Not because they didn't believe in the genocidal, maniacal elements of those folks. No, they were doing it because Netanyahu was involved in multiple criminal cases that was coming to a head. He was attacking their judiciary there. And everybody in the United States, most folks in the United States didn't know that most of the white Israelis there were protesting by the thousands, and some numbers by the hundreds of thousands, which is an extraordinary number for them to be such a small country, in Israel almost every week. The mainstream media didn't tell us that, Brother Richard. I want you to jump in at any point and tell me, as a brother that's based out of the UK, from your worldview, from your perspective as a journalist, as someone that has even been in that region, as someone that has been a voice for the voices for the Palestinian folks and so forth, talk to us about what in the world do you think is going on, and why in the world would the Israelis be plotting against Black American, specifically Black American youth?
What a question. There are so many answers to that question, but first and foremost, partly to your answer, Vicky, I want to start in Israel itself. So there are Black Jews who migrate from places, various countries in Africa, Sudan, Ethiopia, so on and so forth. These Black people mistakenly flee persecution. They come to Israel thinking, okay, we're Jewish. We're in the Jewish homeland. And they get ghettoized. They get forced into the worst living conditions, jobs, healthcare, so on and so forth. Why do I say that? I say that because even within Israel, many of those Black people are protesting against what? Against police brutality in Israel, against incarceration in Israel, against inferior treatment in Israel, and education, housing, so on and so forth. Black women in Israel who were Jewish were forcibly sterilized by Israel about 12 or so years ago. I want people to understand that Israel had a policy of forcibly sterilizing Black Jewish Israelis in Israel. Now, if Israel can view Black life in Israel itself as an existential threat to the state, politically, demographically, it's no surprise that they view all Black people as some kind of a threat. Now, the starting point has to be Israel is provably, demonstrably, and this is not my view, this is not conjecture, this is fact. Israel is a colonial, illegal, apartheid state, if you want to call it that. Israel is not even a democracy. We could maybe call it a kleptocracy.
Come on.
There's no nationalist kleptocracy. Now, regarding the US, the fact of the matter is, anyone who studied serious history or even a basic measure of history knows this. The Black American soul and spirit and intellect and prowess and determination in the United States has been the bedrock and the foundation and the movement for all major social change for equality across America. So it's not just the Black Lives Matter movement. Black people have really carried the entirety of all communities in America on their backs from the foundation of the country, from building the country physically. Foundational Black Americans literally built America from the ground up. And then after that process, we see that Black Americans did what? They were the driving force behind every major civil rights and other such changes that have been for the betterment of all people. Now, regarding your question, Vicky, Israel knows that just like any other protest movement, just like any other social drive for change, Black people have been instrumental with their energy and their capabilities and what they bring to the table, also within the Black Lives Matter movement, right? Now, of course, there's a distinction to be made between Black Lives Matter, the organization, and Black Lives Matter, the slogan, which has arguably been there for hundreds of years, right?
Yes.
But Israel knows, if we take, for example, Columbia University, protest for the Palestinian people. Yes. Now, it's not just young Black people, actually it's all people. Many young people are demanding justice. But if we see in Columbia University, you had, I think it was the VC or somebody very senior in Columbia University was caught on the record in private conversations that were leaked saying, here what? It's Black people, it's young people that are the major problem. So Black people are causing a problem for Israel in America because they are the driving force behind the demands for change, the demands for equality. But also it's young Black people online, journalists, influencers, various personalities that are causing Israel a huge headache online. Israel has well and truly lost the information war this time around. The political class can say and do what they want. The mainstream media can say and do what they want. But the entire world now is in no doubt that this is a genocide. And the contributions that Black America has always made and continues to make in bringing the truth to the fore, in shedding light on the darkness, in calling out war criminals unapologetically. Israel knows that the energy of the young Black youth in America in particular is in itself a force to be reckoned with. And I'll just land with this point with this, Vicki. We see this energy, and it's such a beautiful history. You know, if you take, there's so many things in America that Black people have literally built from the rubble, from the rubble, and exported it globally. If you take hip hop as an example, in New York, New York, that was razed to the ground, impoverished intentionally by the state. Black people built hip hop, which is now a globally loved phenomenon. From nothing. So Israel, the one thing they are not stupid. So they are well aware of the threat that Black Americans pose, you know, to their country. And from their perspective, I suppose they should be worried about it. And it's not just that. They've seen over the last few years the ferocity, the energy that Black people have had in demanding reparations. And Israel don't want that smoke.
Ooh, wait. Y'all see why I got him on here, don't you, y'all? Y'all see why I got the brother on here? Everybody hit that thumbs up button, share. Repeat that last part, brother. You can't move on that fast from that last part. You said it's not just that. You said about the energy, and Israel doesn't want that smoke. Yes.
the accountability that Black Americans have demanded from the US government in terms of police brutality, the prison system, the policing, these conversations have remained at the fore, at the center, on the agenda. The last kind of 5 years in particularly, especially, you know, the majority of that energy is from Black Americans. Israel can see that, and they are terrified of the fact that many Black Americans, I'm not just talking about Israel, you know, they have been and consistently been the driving force behind so much change around the world. So if you imagine Black people in Israel are a problem, they know full well that Black Americans are a major problem in the streets, online. And the other thing is this: Israel is very aware that, you know, South Africa is far from perfect even to this day. They're still entrenched white supremacy, inequality, etc. But the backbone of apartheid was broken because what? Black people in Africa, around the world, and allies were consistently demanding justice. They demand for, you know, South Africa to be boycotted financially, politically, on the world stage, in sports, in entertainment, etc. And Israel, this tiny illegitimate country in the so-called Middle East with a relatively small population, it can have 4 billion a year from Israel. It can have X amount of arms from the UK, but nothing can stop an idea that's time is ready. And the idea of Palestinian freedom, which is linked to every decolonial movement around the world, this time has come. Black Americans have played a huge role in bringing this to the spotlight. They will continue to play a monumental role. And Israel is, I need to curse then, Israel is quaking in its boots. Israel is scared of the power of actually the universal Black spirit. Israel is afraid of anything Black because Israel is an ethno-nationalist, illegitimate kleptocracy. And Netanyahu, Smotrich, all of them are quaking in their boots.
Man, I feel fire on my shoulders, fire on top of my head, fire in the chat, fire coming from the UK, fire coming from the screen. Talk Black to me, somebody. Let me hit the gavel on that. For those of you that don't know, and I don't know how you don't know, the Vicki Show is a home of the hand claps and the gavel raps.
One other quick point, Vicki. One other quick point. Sorry, I forgot to say this. The police brutality protests in Israel that are ongoing, by the way. The media don't talk about it. Let's say, you know, it's not really a Jewish state because it's about some Jews. It's about the white Jews.
That's a fact.
It's about white migrants from Europe. But Israel is very aware that the Black people in Israel are inspired by the Black Lives Matter protests in America, which, by the way, and the other point to this, they saw that when George Floyd, rest in power to him, and all the victims of white supremacy in America, but particularly George Floyd, Israel saw that when George Floyd was murdered, America was about to erupt. And not just that, the power and inspiration of those protests that began in America, and God bless the Black American family, that energy did what, Vicki? It spread around the world. And that energy has gone on to inspire other movements. So powerful was it? Environmental movements, movements for justice, movements for civil liberties, etc., etc. So they are very, very aware of this power. The irony is they know that ultimately, Vicki, they can't do anything about it. They cannot stop what's happening any more than they can stop fate. They can pour all the money into their Hasbara trolls. They can pour all the money into their NGOs, all their money into the lobbying. Ain't going to work. Ain't going to work. And they know the power. They know the power of Black America.
I need to emphasize, with all that fire you just spit, we have to emphasize a phrase that you use, which is very important. And I don't want us to skirt past it because we've normalized this phrase, but this is very, 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 very important. You called it the information war. Yes? I keep reminding folks that it's always been about the war of words. Whether you're looking from that perspective, metaphysically, scientifically, spiritually, or otherwise, it's always been about the war of words. Why do I bring that up? Because it has everything to do with the media voices. Yes, that has everything to do with them staying in power. Is when they help, when they start to control the narrative, which is what they're trying to do right now with the murder of Charlie Kirk. Now, Charlie Kirk is not someone that I believe should be lionized. I'm not saying that he's someone that should be disrespected. I have my own perspective about that as a feminine woman. This is my planet, and I feel that I run it the way that I want to. I understand that there are certain protocols and niceties that other folks want to observe so that their motives aren't unfairly amalgamated with the issues of the powers that shouldn't be trying to push. They're trying to make sure that they're trying to make it clear that they're not trying to disrespect him. Of course, I'm not trying to disrespect him. I just don't think it's my job to jump through a whole bunch of hoops after my people die for niceties, after we've forgiven you when our dead weren't buried. None of us have gotten the type of attention globally that Charlie Kirk has received in the United States, Foundation of Black Americans. The Palestinian plight, I haven't seen the world come together like in unison like this. I think I saw, and you correct me on this, I think I saw, of course I have to go to alternative media for the real media, but I could have sworn I saw something about the alternative media, the parliament there or something. They wanted them in the UK somewhere to observe a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk, and they refused and they got up erupted. Do you know what I'm talking about there?
I think I heard something about that. Yeah, I mean, it's a mixed bag in the UK, but you know, with each young generation that's being born, you know, racism is a problem to stamp out and it's a challenge. But I really believe that with each generation, these attitudes are falling to the wayside and are being relegated to the dustbin of history. The Charlie Kirk issue is no different. So there was, of course, a lot of crocodile tears and fake sympathy for Charlie Kirk from fellow suspected white supremacists. But at the same time, there's a huge resistance to that BS as well. Now, it doesn't mean for one instance, personally, Vicki, and I suspect your politics is probably similar, I don't wish death on anybody, and I certainly don't celebrate death. Sure. However, I put this on Twitter. If I didn't respect you in life, I'm not going to pretend to respect you in death. That would be hypocritical. And someone that made a career and made money and prestige and influence from denigrating black women and black people, talking about if I get in a plane with a black pilot, I'm going to be worried. Like, you don't have to pretend to respect this person. I think it's and it saddens me to see so many other black people from across the world put on a cape for this man who doesn't even view you as human, much less equal.
Well said, indeed. And I bring that up because I'm proving in no limit of time the interest of white supremacy to elevate his life, and especially when we look at him very closely. And of course, somebody was pulling up receipts about Charlie Kirk, and somebody found something that I commented on from a post that Brother Tariq Nasheed made. I think it was either 2017, specifically about Charlie Kirk. So I said, y'all sure find them on receipts. And I bring that up to say, I don't owe anybody an explanation when I've been on this boy for all these years. And I'm not going to stop it because you're trying to change the narrative so that there's a biblical statement, Brother Richard, that says that there's a man of sin that's going to be revealed. But the reason why he's being revealed is because he is operating undercover. So the main way someone or something is revealed is obviously through speech, right? So that's the first thing that they want to do, is they want to control the speech. Now, even though whether we believe that this Tyler guy is the real killer or not, and of course, I don't believe that he is the only one that's involved in that, and some of us may not even believe that he's really the one that hit shot him. Whatever the situation is, we know whether it's a white individual or white government or white interest. I tweeted the other day that I said white people are out here fighting each other, but pretend like the enemy is somebody other than them. So it's the same way with Zionists. It's the same way with certain white Israelis. The moment you call out their white supremacy, they bring up their religion as a cover. What it is, when I say what you did was white supremacist, what you did was racist, what you did was wrong, what you did was unjust, what you did was a violation of human rights, what you did was this, they throw on the cape of the label and then try to turn around. So they create what I call an entity. See, that's why I have a problem. We emphasize labels, political parties and all this stuff over being, in essence, black first, because you get to hide behind that label and other black looking people will join and say, well, we Republican too. We Democrat too. We Christian too. That's my brother and sister in Christ. This is what gets me. And that's what they do. And that's the reason why I call certain elements of Christianity, after being raised, brought up in it, as a diabolical, a satanic form of spirituality. That's Vicki Dillard talking. There are certain elements of that that cannot be called anything other than that, because that's why we have Calvaries throughout the United States. I said that's why we have Calvaries and crucifixions throughout the United States. In fact, one that just happened here recently in Mississippi, the state that I was born and raised in, just found out that a black family there got a call from police that their son was found dead, or unresponsive, I should say, that was the term, in his dorm and at the college, only for the news to come out and say that he was found hanging from a tree. Now, this is very important to understand this. Now, I'm bringing this up. I'm going to say this, and I want you to jump in here. Everybody be sure to hit that thumbs up button. I want to welcome those of you that are coming in right now. Shout out to our moderators. Shout out to those of you all that are here. Be sure to like and share. I want to get into here in just a minute. And all of you all that are giving, your gifts are blessed 1,000-fold. Man, Scott, your $20 gift is blessed 1,000-fold. I just showed another super chat from someone else. Your gift is blessed 1,000-fold. Family, be sure to pay close attention to the links that my moderators, they're highlighted in blue. They're putting important information in the chat. Yes. So family, be sure to check that out when you get a chance. But I want to keep this moving. Brother Richard, I want you to jump in here because you made some very profound points. And that's very important, that whenever we're talking about Israel, specifically white Israelis, I love the point that you bring out about some of the racist discrepancies that are happening within their own, I'm calling them discrepancies, just sound like I'm diplomatic in terms of language, related to Black Jews in Israel, like the ones that they sterilize. I've done broadcasts of them as well. And mainstream media, Brother Richard, they don't talk about that, our buddies that we're sending all these billions and billions of dollars to. For whatever reason, they don't really push the plight and expose to us that within elements of the Jewish community, they're actually persecuting, they're actually sterilizing, unbeknownst to those women, y'all. That's the story. They did not know. They were lied to about what the medical industry was doing to them, only to find out later that they were actually sterilizing them. So the white Israelis over there, they don't care too much about no black ones. They're concerned equally about the darkening of not even their country. They invaded that country. These folks are not from there. Brother Rich, before I go further, talk to us. Talk to us about why do they have high cancer rates, you think, skin cancer rates? Talk to us about that. And not just that, please, and even if you want to pull this up, you did an article, a tweet. No, it maybe was an article. Talk to us about what you did, not the one on the UK Parliament. I want to save that one for later, where you specifically, I want to pull it up. This one. See, I like to pull up the receipts, y'all. I don't want to just be talking. I want you to talk to us, connect the dots between what I just said and this, where you said, can y'all see this? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things to unpack there. First of all, Netanyahu comes from a family, I think his original name from Poland is Milkowski.
Yes, Milkowski.
So he's a European white dude from Europe. This is what his family is. They've gone to somewhere in the Middle East and they've changed their name to try and be more indigenous. But I really think people just need to think about this really just in terms of plain old European colonialism, from Australia to America to elsewhere. Everywhere Europeans with a lighter hue have gone, they face challenges because here what? They are not the indigenous people. Now, yeah, I did a video a year or two back and I talked about how, and it's interesting, this doesn't really get the light of day, just like Australia, white Israelis suffer from very, very high skin cancer rates in Israel. Now, that's not something to joke about. I'd never joke about cancer, but I was making the point. A lot of people were laughing. They thought I was making a joke. But anyway, the point is, if you're supposedly indigenous from a land, you should be able to deal with the climate. It's like me saying I'm from Botswana, Vicky, or somewhere very, very hot, but I can't handle the climate. How can I be from there? And the other thing to really think about is this. If Israel is a Jewish state, if Israel is a religious state, a Jewish state, then why the hell are they so hell-bent on keeping it white? Because it's nothing to do with religion. They got no problem persecuting black Jews. It's not a religious thing. They've got no problem massacring Palestinian Christians. They do not give a shit. This is about skin tone. This is about racism. I mean, the architects, Theodore Herzl and everyone else, the original architects of Israel were, you know, Christian or atheist European people. That's just a historical fact. So these people have no real legitimacy in Israel. They are terrified. And it's interesting, much like we have this great replacement nonsense in America, in the UK, they're clearly terrified of Israel being anything other than a white nationalist country. They view the Palestinians as a demographic threat. The Palestinians are, of course, the indigenous people to that land. Again, that's just historical fact. But you know, this thing we're talking about, Vicky, is the same reason why, I don't know if your viewers know this, DNA tests. DNA tests were banned in Israel until very recently. Because if God's chosen people go and do their DNA tests, they're going to find out they're from New York, they're from London, they're from Poland, they're from, you know, wherever it might be, Lithuania, they're from Malta, they're from Spain. They are not from there. And you know, you just reminded me of something, Vicky. Our dear brother, Kyrie Irving, shout out to him. He's got the best handles the game has ever seen, but that's another one. That's to talk about. But do you all remember a couple years back? The brother didn't even tweet an opinion. He retweeted a link, which I believe included information about the fact that the original everything is black. The original everything is black. The original Hebrews, the original Jews are black. And again, this is a historical fact that they want to scrub out because it doesn't fit with their intentions, with the way they want to present themselves. And really, the whole reason why Israel is a friend of the UK and a friend of the US, the intersection is what? We can talk about class. We can talk about other things. Black is the intersection. Black has always been the intersection. So these people, their unifying, codified, unifying factor is their whiteness. The white skin is their political currency, and they do not care about anything else. Because you would imagine if they were a Jewish state, truly, they would be welcoming Jews from all parts of the world, from Europe, from Africa, from everywhere. But they are not. They seem to be only interested in welcoming European-looking Jewish people. This is just a fact. People can call you anti-Semitic, but the other fact is, and God bless these people, there are millions and millions of Jewish people from all walks of life. Some Jewish people who might not even believe in God. They are Jewish culturally. Then you have your Orthodox Jews, but you have millions of Jews that have stood on the right side of history and that are standing on the right side of history in this particular issue. And back to your central question, Vicky, all of this information that people are beginning to talk about more and more, they know that Black Americans in particular young Black Americans, but not just young Black Americans, have been, will remain instrumental in sharing this information. So we talked about an information war.
Yes.
There is nothing the mainstream media and their lackeys can do to counter the sharing of factual information about Black history, the history of Palestine and Israel. And they fear this, you know, they fear it, but there's not really much they can do about it. But they're terrified of the power of Black protest, Black truth, Black spirit. They're afraid of it in Israel. They're afraid of it from the United States.
Yes,
and again, they understand the power of the Black Lives Matter movement in America. They saw what happened after George Floyd.
Come on.
They are terrified of their day of reckoning coming, but their day of reckoning is coming.
Indeed, indeed. I see someone here said, salute UK, stand up. Indeed, salute UK. And I want us to get into that because I want to talk about one of your articles because we need to be talking about the Black Britons there as well. And I want you to connect some dots here in just a moment. Everybody, those of you that are just tuning in, be sure when this broadcast is over that you watch the entire broadcast. Thank you all so much for your patience. We're going to chop this interview up later and put it on other platforms as well. But I had to make sure that I was able to connect with my brother who's based out of the UK. Of course, you all have seen me do this a couple of times before with him. It's such a privilege, such an honor. He's also interviewed me as well. And I received some wonderful feedback because it also introduced me to a different international audience, which was absolutely amazing. One of the things that I think is very important is the spirit part of this. And it is not something that can be overemphasized, Brother Richard. It is absolutely something that can't be. Do you understand what you're saying is that we're so powerful? Our ability, since I keep talking about like what you're saying and all the stuff that you do, is such fire. People, this message, this spirit is what's contagious. Yes, it's what's flammable. Yes. And that's the danger, which is why they work so hard to control all of the levers of media. You made some points when you first started about this. I can't remember what phrase you used exactly, but basically there's this propagandizing online and they've lost the media war online. And that's very, very dangerous, which to me, of course, that's connected to the death, the murder of Charlie Kirk. But I just saw this from Middle East News, Middle East Eye, I should say. I said Middle East News, no, it's Middle East Eye. They posted this. I don't know if you can see that. I try to use my phone to where I'll read it here in just a second. It says here, Brother Rich, it says, it's been 1 year since my sister was killed by the Israeli military. Families of U.S. citizens killed by Israel, says Trump administration refuses to investigate. That's just out. Here's another piece to this. Why am I bringing this up in this context? You're going to see in a minute. Here's another one. Y'all know I don't have to gossip over here, baby. I just give you receipts. That says 8 U.S. citizens have been killed by Israeli forces primarily in the last 3 years. And it is the first time that the families have joined forces to demand a U.S.-led investigation and accountability into their deaths. I brought this up and I'm connecting some dots with this. This lady looked very familiar to me, Brother Richard. Who? Let me show you. I had to make sure I had my facts together before I got on here. I got this one from TRT World. Y'all look at this screenshot. This lady is who looked familiar to me. And that's because I have an interest in international news. So I recognized her face, right? But I'm like, who is she? Guess who she is? This is just recently that this was posted. Do you see that? Democratic PR firm. Y'all see that? Hired to run Israeli propaganda bots on TikTok, Instagram, and more. This lady I've seen talk about politics in other places, but behind the scenes, Brother Richard, she has been contracted by the Israelis, Netanyahu and them, to run a PR propaganda bots on TikTok, Instagram, and more. Now, remember you said about them losing the online war, yes? We'll give you specifics on who she is, and I'm gonna say this, and I want you to jump in with your thoughts. A new investigation by Sludge finds that a Democratic Party aligned PR firm, that's why I recognized her face, has been hired by the state of Israel to run, quote, bot-based campaigns on social media. According to Sludge, I'm giving you all the receipts, SKDK, was contracted by Israel in April 2025 for $600,000 to spread pro-Israel messaging online and train Israeli spokespeople for interviews with Western outlets, including the BBC, AP, Fox, and CNN. The firm was founded by Anita Dunn, because I'm like, where do I know her face from? The firm was founded by Anita Dunn, longtime advisor, and this is why I recognize it. Y'all think I'm making it up? Am I making this up? Can y'all take a screenshot of that? I want y'all thinking Vicki making nothing up. Longtime advisor to former presidents Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and several of its senior managers previously worked for Senator who? Chuck Schumer. So this Israeli madness is a bipartisan situation. I think some folks call them, and I think accurately, the uniparty, because really Israel, the notion of Israel, anti-reparations for Black Americans, that's something that the uniparty, both parties, both leaders, not even just both, what's his name? Bernie Sanders. Mm-hmm. Bernie just came out using the word genocide related to Israel after fighting folks early on about not using that term. He was on The View not too long ago, still doubling down on the fact that we shouldn't be getting reparations. Bernie believes in trillions of dollars for freebies for white folks, what he called working class Americans. That's his way of talking about white folks that's mad they ever had to work. Mm-hmm. He believes in trillions for what? Free healthcare, right? He believes in free education, right? And he believes in blowing up the budget because he believes that that money is going to be end up being a blessing back if we make that investment. But when it comes down to money for Black Americans who created the United States, he said hell to the no. Please jump in, Brother Richard. I know I said a lot there, but I wanted your opinion on this.
Yeah, I'm really glad you raised that issue, actually, particularly about Bernie Sanders, because he's someone who's viewed more on the progressive, the left side. But this unilateral agreement and wholesale agreement to not pay a single federal dollar to Black Americans shows you that white supremacy is not a left-right issue. It's as American as apple pie.
Come on.
It's as British as something in Britain, right? But you have, and I have to, regarding Bernie Sanders, I have to shout out my dear brother Sean King on this, and I've got a lot of respect for Sean, and I spoke to him recently about this. It's interesting that Sean published an open letter on his platform, the North Star, just hours before Bernie made this announcement. It's a genocide, right? Everyone can see it's a genocide. Sean King published an open letter to Bernie, basically expressing how disappointed he was as someone who campaigned with Bernie, etc. So it seems, I believe, it looks likely that Bernie Sanders got wind of this open letter from Sean King and all of a sudden had a moral epiphany, and all of a sudden he calls it a genocide. But really and truly, we have very few allies. As a UK, US global diaspora, we have very few allies. And I think it's what really fascinated me, Vicki, about what you just said, is Israel hiring the Democrats for the information war. God damn it, they must want to lose the information war. I could have told them, you know, like if the one party you do not want to take advice from is the Democrats. I mean, I will never forget when Kamala Harris was finally inaugurated as the candidate. One of her first televised interviews, they said, "What are you going to do different?" She's like, "Nothing."
Nothing.
I'm like, who is giving these people the advice? Who told Israel that the Democrats are a good hire to win anything? The Democrats can't fight their way out of a paper bag right now. Never mind consult Israel and help them with an information war. In fact, if I was Israel, I wouldn't hire any Democrat. I think it's going to backfire on them, to be honest with you. But it also shows how, as much as they are resourced, unfortunately, with your tax dollars and my tax money, as fully as they are resourced, they kind of haven't really got a clue about a lot of stuff. But there's a more serious point you mentioned as well, Vicki, which is Israelis killing American citizens, be they black, white, or any background. Israel has no problem killing American citizens. Shireen Abu Akleh, God rest her soul, a year or two back, Shireen Abu Akleh, the Palestinian, and the media, you see, they emphasize the Palestinian part of her identity. She was an American, and she was gunned down in broad daylight by the Israeli occupation forces. So if we were in a normal political situation, if any other country around the world, China, India, Indonesia, Australia, Iceland, any country around the world was killing American citizens, this would not just be major front page news. There would be people rioting in the street, and rightly so. But because it's Israel, it gets a pass. Why does Israel get a pass? Well, I really believe, and this is something, shout out to Tariq Nasheed and elders like Needy Fuller and Dr. Frances Cress-Welsing, rest in power for her. Yes. They talked about how, you know, Needy Fuller said, first of all, if you don't understand white supremacy, everything else will confuse you. My point is this: the unifying thing that unifies all of these entities, these countries, whatever you want to call them, is whiteness. The reason why there's no outrage for the butchering of American citizens at the hands of Israeli occupation force soldiers is because we are talking about another white country, another white ethno-nationalist country founded on genocide, run on genocide, and actually with Israel intent on carrying out genocide throughout the region. Let's not pretend this is going to end in Gaza. It won't even end in the West Bank. There is a plan, and the American government and the UK government are working in tandem with this plan. There is a plan to widen and broaden Israel's geographical status all across the region. And that means more genocide. That means more bloodshed. And ironically, Israel is making a mockery of not just American democracy, not just trampling all over American democracy with AIPAC and Democrats being hired and all. And this is the shit we know about, Vicky. This is the stuff that's on the record.
Well said.
God only knows what's going on behind the scene.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Israel is the most crazy, ruthless, white supremacist, ethno-nationalist kleptocracy in modern times. You know what I mean? We talk about the barbarity of the British in colonial times. We talk about the barbarism of the French. We talk about the barbaric nature of Belgium, Italy, etc. Israel is carrying the flag for white supremacy right now. And that's why everyone who's white is getting, not everyone who's white, but this is why so many millions of white people in white countries are getting on code with Israel. Birds of a feather flock together. And one more point, Vicky, and we've talked about this before. And again, this is fact. It's a well-documented fact that the Israeli occupation force military, the police, have trained, have worked with various police forces in the United States, various police forces in the United Kingdom, and that's just the ones we know about.
Everything you said was so freaking powerful, and people are going crazy in the chat right now. Everybody hit that thumbs up button, share. Appreciating our dear brother out of the UK, my British brother. As I say, brother Richard Sudan, I love this so much. But I want us to get into what's happening with the Black Britons here. I want you to prepare to talk to us a little bit about that. I want to quote just a little bit of your article from The Voice here in just a moment, just to serve as a little bit of context, because I believe that this is so very important. And I'm bringing this up. And the reason why I brought up the recent thing, like you just said, if this is the stuff that we know, what about the stuff that we don't know? That's why I'm emphasizing in the beginning that this Israeli consul, high-level government official, who held other previous high-level governmental jobs before this one. That's why I keep emphasizing it was secretly recorded. You understand? That's why I keep emphasizing that a lot of the stuff that we are coming to know, even with this article, this one here, this was from, they hired her, SKDK. She was contracted in April 2025, but we're just learning about this $600,000 that this Democrat woman utilized her skills, her propaganda PR firm skills, who formerly worked for Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and several other Democratic seniors like Senator Chuck Schumer. I'm bringing that up for the reason that some of this information that we are finding out was not meant for us to know. And it's because of voices like ours and individuals with similar persuasions that are causing these things to come forward. But I'm bringing up the spirit and the ability to inspire others as dangerous in the eyes of the powers that shouldn't be, because I'm trying to actually make a point, a reverse point of just how powerful we really are, Brother Richard. Because even without the billions of dollars and without the access to levers of powers like they have, they are still concerned, like the consul said, that their number one threat to Israel, this was years ago, are Black Americans. Similarly, that spirit, not only here in the United States, but Black folks around the world are a threat to them because our natural innate powers are a threat to their systems. Do you understand? This is why I'm bringing this up. That's why they're doing all this. Now, one of the things I want to say, and I want you to talk about this, you wrote this piece. Y'all, this is one of his, Brother Richard's latest pieces. This is dated, I believe, September 4th. Yeah, September 4th. From The Voice, from Brother Richard. I want you to talk a little bit about this. The headline says, the far right isn't hiding anymore, and Black Britons must remain vigilant. I was devastated when I saw this picture of this young, Black, beautiful boy that was unfortunately murdered due to anti-Blackness, racism. But also, you put this picture of Dr. Fortune. How do you pronounce her name? I don't want to mispronounce it.
Fortune.
It is. Okay, it is Fortune. So, y'all look at her. These are things that's happening in the UK. In another section here, you say flags. That's headline says flags, fires, and fear. The warning signs you say we can't ignore further on down in the article. The next act that says, I'm skipping. Of course, I want you to give context to everything. I'm just throwing this out here for you to make sense of it for us. The next act, it says, arrives in September. A far right, Unite the Kingdom, mobilization marketed as, quote, free speech festival called for by convicted fraudster Tommy Robinson. I think you even put his picture in here. Let me go down. Yeah, you did. I'm right. Yep. Here he is. Let me go back up to the article, that part of the article. You said that mobilization marketed as free speech a festival called for by convicted fraudster Tommy Robinson, who was also convicted for defamation of a Syrian school board, is set for central London on September 13th, with trade unions and anti-racist groups already organizing counter-protests. It's set for central London on September 13th. Okay, I just said that. Organizers are savvy enough to demand it remains peaceful, despite knowing full well that many of its supporters are the opposite of peaceful. If you think, you say that the Unite the Kingdom event is one that is on the fringes, look at the turnout for a similar recent protest at the recent Northern Ireland violence. The far right is testing its strength in the open. You say civil society must meet it in the open too. Talk to us. What in the hell is going on with Black Britons?
So there's, I believe, always been a perception around the world, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, Vicki. And part of this perception was created by the UK. There's always been a perception that somehow, even though the rest of Europe has got such a racist history, and the UK as well, the perception has persisted that somehow the UK is a more welcoming place, that somehow the UK is separate from the evidenced rise in fascism in Italy, Germany, Austria, Hungary, you name it. But the fact of the matter is, and it's interesting, Vicki, I remember writing about going to these street protests of the far right, seeing them for myself back in 2009, back in 2010, looking at the political tide and saying, listen, friends, I really believe that fascism is a real threat to the UK. And I remember being told by people, Richard, man, this is just young naivety. It's never going to get that bad. Well, as Malcolm said, the chickens are coming home to roost.
Talk about it.
The chickens that are coming home to roost is that the UK has never, much like America, has never reconciled with its history. Okay, much like America, the UK was built, industrialized, and the labor comes from Black people in the Caribbean and elsewhere, not just Black people, other colonies, but the UK drew its modernity and its strength from the resources it took from Black people and around the world. Then there was a period where, I guess you could say in the 1990s, there's certain equality legislation, etc. But the undercurrent of very dangerous, violent, white supremacist fascism has always been there in the streets, actually. It's always been there. Now, the disparities regarding the treatment of Black Britons are not new. Black Britons are always X amount more times are likely to be stopped by the police, killed by the police, imprisoned, in custody, inferior sentencing in a criminal justice system, employment, healthcare, so on and so forth. But now, you're not just, this is twofold now. You're seeing the political class, the ones that decide the laws, the ones that hold power. Yes. All of this has shifted more and more to the right in recent years. And with that shift, you've seen the undercurrent of anti-black racism, which has always been there, started to rear its head. Now, I want to give you one example. If unfortunately in football matches, you guys call it soccer, in soccer matches in the UK, it's less than it was now, but you've always had monkey chants from the crowd, right? Whenever black players touch the ball, you would get monkey chants from the crowd. Now, as disgusting as that is, people need to understand where that comes from. It comes from the pseudoscience of hundreds of years ago, put forward by the leading academics of the day, who said, here what? Black people are closer to monkeys than human beings. And so entrenched culturally is that white supremacy that it never went away. It's persisted. And now it feels like its moment has come. Actually, you had a situation in, I think it was the World Cup a few years back, where you had some wonderful black British players, Saka, Marcus Rashford, and the game got to penalties, right? The game got to penalties. England got to the final. And what happened was this: when the game got to penalties and we have black penalty takers in this big soccer game for England, all the black people in the UK, and actually all of the non-white people, were thinking, dear God, please let these young boys not miss their shots, because we all knew exactly what was going to happen if they missed their shots. And they missed their shots. And the online racism that spiraled from that reminded us very acutely, very starkly, that, you know, when the chips are down, when people in the UK are struggling, I'm sorry to say it, but not all, but the white working class are a different kettle of fish when they get angry in the UK. And now what you're basically seeing is, and I'm sorry if I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, no, there's so much to say about this. But now, just like in America, white working class people, and actually it's not even a class thing, right? Just white people generally, when they who are racist, white people who are racist. Many white people are not racist. The white people that are racist, when they see Trump gain office, when they see the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, basically, you know, fanning the flames of racism rather than challenging it, when they see that a man called Nigel Farage is going to be the next Prime Minister in the UK, and you can remember that I said that, when they see that Nigel Farage is about to be the leader in the UK, we can see just how dangerous a moment we have. Now, in that article, I talked about Fortune Gomo, I talked about Daniel Enduring, but there were frankly, I want your audience, particularly Americans, to really understand this. Hate crime in the UK, vicious race motivated attacks have rocketed the last few years. Just a few days ago, Vicky, just a few days ago, there was an Asian woman, I want to say in Birmingham. She was gang raped in broad daylight by a bunch of white men, which we have to be careful with the language. They haven't proven whether it's racially motivated yet, but it is my opinion that it definitely was racially motivated, just like the murder of Fortune Gomo in Scotland. And there's a suppression of this reality. So what I want black people to understand is that, you know, we have to use all means available to defend ourselves and our liberty. Black people in the UK right now are kind of, see where the danger really is, Vicky. You see, when it comes to white supremacy in the UK, these cowards that they are, excuse my French, they will never go to areas with large black and non-white populations. They will never go to Brixton. They will never go to Birmingham. They will never go to Liverpool. But what they do is they go to areas where the black people and the non-white people are few and far between. And these are the people they usually target. This poor woman in Dundee, who was a mother, a doctor, a graduate of Dundee University. She was stabbed to death in broad daylight in front of her son. And, you know, these are the cases that we hear about. So the point I'm really making is this. Fascism is on the march globally. We see it in the US. We see it in Europe. We see it in the UK. We even see it in Australia. Everywhere where white settler colonialism has gone and the society has failed because they're not interested in equality, everywhere these communities have gone, black and all non-white people need to remain very, very vigilant. And I land on this point with this, Vicky, and never, ever fall into the trap of being too comfortable, of being too cozy. There's a very powerful speech by our dear brother, Muhammad Ali, the boxer, rest in peace. And incredibly, he gives a very powerful interview with, I think, a British guy, Michael Parkinson. And Michael Parkinson is kind of making a valid point, right? He's saying, well, you're talking about racism, Muhammad Ali, blah, blah, blah. what about the good white people? And Muhammad Ali says this. He says, look, Michael, if there's 100 snakes coming at me, 100 snakes are rushing at me, and I know, I know that 10 of the snakes are good. 10 of the snakes don't want to hurt me. They might even want to help me. Does that mean I should still get so comfortable to allow all of them? No, we need to remain very vigilant. We need to remain alert. We need to look at the laws that are being passed, because another thing, Vicky, I'm talking a lot, I know.
No, this is why you're here.
But just like in America, you have attacks, I will call them attacks on the education system. Now they're trying to teach the Florida Board of Education, I believe it was, saying that slavery was a good thing. We learned some skills. You got some stuff. There is a deliberate attempt by the state to erase Black people, to erase Black contributions, to erase Black history. And there's an attempt to do that in the UK. It's being fomented in law. It's being fomented culturally, and all of the knuckle dragging, cowardly, white supremacist street thugs, they see this happening in politics and they feel their time has come. So the rise in fascism in the UK is not a new thing. They just look around and think their moment has come, just like they are in Australia, just like they are in the US. So we need to remain as vigilant as ever, but also last point, Vicky, not wallow in despair, not to forget our agency. I mean, you talked about the spirit, Vicky. I mean, from America, even to Haiti, those people freed themselves with a knowledge of rocks and plants and a geographical understanding of where the rivers were. You know what I mean? So that shows you how powerful the spirit is. So we need to be vigilant, but also inspired and motivated and working with like-minded people. And we need to be ready to protect by any means the most vulnerable people in our community. And in the UK, and I'll land on this, the data, the facts show you that actually Black women, particularly Black Muslim women on public transport, are the most vulnerable at the moment. Just like that poor Black woman, rest in peace to her, in Dundee, in Scotland.
Wow, this is deep. Somebody, I noticed a couple, I was looking for the comment just now, but I don't see it. Somebody put that up a couple of different times. They were saying, what is the pushback in the UK from this, this anti-Black white supremacy? I'm paraphrasing what was said, but basically they're wanting to know basically about the Black pushback there in the UK.
I'll keep this answer general, because I'm a big believer that we need to be mindful that the enemy is often watching our conversations. We know they're fascinated with our dialogue, right? Jumping in our spaces, jumping in our business. But I'll say this.
Thanks.
Especially the young Black people.
What's safe to say.
But there are young Black people in the UK that are physically fit, that are organized, that are trained, that are committed to the safeguarding of their communities, but particularly women and children. They understand history. They understand the present historical moment. They understand the attack that is upon us, and they will not stand for violence being inflicted on them. And again, Vicky, just to circle back, this is why these white supremacists, they will never target an area where there's young Black youth, because they'll get their asses kicked. But Black people are aware. I wish we were a bit more organized. I wish sometimes we would utilize and collectivize our purchasing power, our political agency. But fundamentally, when people are trying to kill you in the street, it's not a question of economics or political affiliations. It's a question of life or death. But Black people, we've survived genocides. We've survived occupations. We've survived the ongoing threat of police brutality. And we will survive and thrive and get through this. But I really believe there's going to be a lot of discontent in the streets in the UK, because actually, I think the article mentioned the rise of the kind of UK flag, right? I don't know if you and your viewers have seen this, but so in America, Make America Great is Make America White Again. That's
exactly right.
Make America White Again.
That's right.
And now you have a Make Britain White movement in the UK. And so a lot of the angry, white, frustrated class, particularly young white people that are pissed off and racist, they see these demands for accountability, reparations, and end to police brutality. And it's interesting that they see that as a threat, don't they? These communities, they see it. They see me saying, stop killing me, stop killing my kids, as a threat to them, even though I'm just saying, stop killing us. We just want a fair crack at the table. But anyway, the flag has become their thing. UK, British flags, the Union Jack is being put up all over the UK. And some of them, and of course, not everyone with a Union Jack flag is racist, but all the racists are waving the UK Jack flag. Wow. And for our communities, for colonized people from Africa, from India, from the Indian subcontinent, from anywhere, those symbols in the UK are a threat. It means you are not welcome. It means don't go there. It was always a known thing. You know, I grew up in a kind of working class town not too far from London. And we always knew, Vicky, my black friends, my brown friends, we always knew if that pub, if that place has Union Jacks all over it, a bit like a Confederate flag, Vicky, like you're not going to walk into a bar or a restaurant with flipping Confederate flags everywhere. Right. And the Union Jack is how I would explain it to US audiences. We feel about the Union Jack as black and non-white people, how you feel about the Confederate flag.
Got it.
It's a symbol of violence. Everywhere that flag has gone around the world, it means violence. And the honest people in the white community, you know, they get it. They're not arguing back. They know, and they kind of have the same political position as us.
Yes.
But fascism is on the rise in the UK. This is the moment where we're at, and we need to be prepared and organized.
Wow. This is deep. Family, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, share. This is absolute fire, my dear brother. And these interconnections are so very important. All of you that are giving, your gifts are blessed 1,000-fold. Shout out to Coach Donnie. Shout out to others. I've been highlighting the others as well. Family, this is the most recent that just popped up. Coach Donnie, he's been a supporter of mine for years. It doesn't matter where I am. He's about, if Vicky talk about domestic issues, he with me when I'm talking about international issues. He's an educator. You see what he says there is always so educational. B1, shout out to you, and shout out to the others that are giving. All of you all. Your gifts are blessed 1,000-fold. And thank you all so very much. What did somebody say here? In solidarity to the Roma community as well. Someone just said US and what was that other one? This chat is moving so fast. Let me keep it going. But when people specifically shout out you and the UK and other things, I want you to see that there are certain ones that's really in here rocking and with us, and then showing the interconnection between the two. Yes. Anyway, my dear brother, one of the things I wanted to say, and I want to let you all know when folks keep saying, well, we're, you know, some certain things we can and can't say before some of the so-called conscious, like, alternative white media folks started to, you know, come out against a lot of topics that they're talking about now. Of course, we were one of the first ones, at least the Vicki show. I don't care what platform I was, whether I was with Fly Nubian Queen at the time, Your Black World, Dr. Boyce, and some of the other interrelated ones, whether I was on other platforms, they've always come for my work before COVID. You understand? Before this Israeli issue. In fact, some years ago, you know, Nick Cannon got into some trouble. And I don't know if you all remember that some years ago, I've been calling out Jamil Hill. She is a well-known black writer. She was with ESPN. Remember, she was a black female writer for sports. And then they end up letting her go. She liked to say, well, I didn't technically get fired. Well, they made the conditions so unbearable and so untenable that you had to bust a move and get the heck up out of Dodge. So the point is, I brought them up because she also wrote for The Atlantic. And why am I bringing up these different individuals? Because for years and over time, including Charlemagne the God, before this issue hit, they were in hot water for their connections to certain Israeli Zionist forces like the ADL and others. I did a long, nonstop expose on Nick, and you would be surprised at people that actually called me to ask me to stop my back-to-back coverage on him. And the reason why I did that, because we're not bringing up the quote unquote these foreign people and entities and nations for no reason, family. It has very real tangible results in your life, consequences in your life. Nick, among many other things, he's an extraordinarily talented, even if he's goofy, he know how to make money, and he is a very talented man, even notwithstanding all the issues that I would certainly get on his tail about. But when he was right, he was right. He created the Wild 'N Out TV show that went absolutely crazy. Well, some years ago, I didn't realize that he didn't technically own at least enough of the rights to his own creation. You understand? I didn't know that until he did this thing to where he was bringing on different guests, like I think he brought on Brother Tariq on one of his broadcasts for something he was doing. He brought on Dr. Umar Johnson. He brought on, I'm missing some other names. Y'all put some of the names that he brought on. And he was getting off into some of these conversations, and he offended certain white Jewish members. Who is it in hip hop, y'all, he brought on? Was it Brother Professor Griff? Did he bring on Professor? That's what it was. Progressive Professor Griff, which of course is a hip hop legend, right? Y'all remember that, y'all? Somebody said he brought on Reza too. Yes. So somebody said he brought on Reza. Yep, Professor Griff. Well, they got into a deep conversation about the history of them folks. And of course, Professor Griff ended up being, cast aside and blacklisted, a bunch of other stuff years and years ago as a conscious rap group. And he's been, they say, paid the price ever since. Somebody say that he brought on Karis. All right, okay, he brought on all the, okay, so these, I want you to get an idea of who he brought on, okay? These are not people, young Pharaoh, all these folks. So you can, that's something right there. Some of those folks are kind of in some similar alternative spaces as us, even though I'm not saying I rock with all them different elements. And I'm not saying there's some not problems with each of them. But I think that show tells you where he was going. What we're talking about is what really hits. And he was kind of integrating some of those voices, right? Well, when he got into a conversation, I think it was with Professor Griff, they got into, I want to say, I don't know if it was the Jewish elements. Y'all remind me of some of what this was, right? That's exactly right, Miss Sharifa. He was acting strong for 1 second. It was about them folks, Brother Richard, okay? So he, in addition to all the other mainstream stuff he was known for, he was starting to do sort of more serious conversations related to elements that are more closely or kind of blending over into some of the topics that I've historically been talking about. Of course, he didn't obviously bring me on or any of that kind of stuff, but the safe brothers that he felt he could bring on. So he got into a deep conversation. He ended up pulling those interviews he did with most of them black brothers, with almost exclusively black men. He pulled them. He lost his mainstream shows, I think, for a second, or they were delayed. His first check from one of the other shows he owned, he gave to one of the white Jewish groups. Who you think towed him up in their next broadcast? Who do you think? Would you like to imagine who did a broadcast on him, giving him that everlasting word, sir? You want to guess? Vicki. I put my foot on his neck so hard and so strong. Somebody is saying that they believed it had to do with Pharaoh. So I put my foot, again, this is all before October 7th. This is what I'm trying to get. So some of these folks that's new, that's just not getting on this. You understand what I'm saying? Somebody said, Miss Vicki, yes, y'all know what it was. So I was one of the only ones that was just getting on to him. The other folks was telling me, well, just calm down. You don't know what's happening behind the scenes with Nick. This is why he didn't. He punked out, and that's what it was. Watch this. For 2 seconds, I said, okay, let's give him a minute. Nick gave his first check to one of those white organizations. They made him go on damn near a year's worth of apologies. He went to their museums, brother. He started making all kinds of justifications for them fools and all this other kind of stuff. So I stayed on this behind. I didn't even trip when he came out to first apologize. You know why? Because I said, okay, he got a lot of stuff at stake. He apologized. He didn't want to hurt nobody's feelings. I didn't even trip on that. You understand? I kind of, okay, let him wiggle out of some of that stuff. But at the same time, he apologized. In the same breath, he said, give me the rights to my show. That's what he told the world. He didn't even own Wild 'N Out. That's what all of us was like, what? We didn't even know that. And so when he demanded his income after they screwed him over, that's when I really had his back. You understand? And after I did all that backing him, notwithstanding the 2 or 3 little disagreeable things, I tried to maintain the main thing. He went on this apology tour for the Jews. He started basically trying to shut us down. And guess what he's going to start to try to blame for all this? Us. When I start calling him out in particular. So then he going to start he put a cryptic tweet out. Like he going to do something to himself. Nick, guess what the black family started saying to me? Sister Vicki, don't do that, because what if Nick do something? He ain't doing nothing to himself. That's a trick to get black folks to back off of him, to cryptically tell us we may not see him no more or something like that. That's when we came up with the phrase, they canceled you, but we were counseling you. Now Nick uses that phrase. That's where a lot of that, I believe, was initially born out of, because we were saying, we didn't cancel you. They're the ones that try to stop your job. and you're $1 billion. Do you know the Wild N' Out, my understanding, was $1 billion company? That's your creation that you didn't even own. We didn't even realize it. They stopped that. Something else he did. His first check from one of them other shows he was on, they made him give and donate to them, go to their Jewish museums and all that, go on a year's worth apology tour. You snatch down pro-conscious, pro-black voices over them. My question is this. I brought up their history and found out that they had some connections in how they even started some of those organizations, the ADL and some of those other related organizations. Watch this. You put your money over there, you shut us down, you try to change the narrative, you try to do all this. I found out that some of the stuff that they were starting, do you know it had to do with some of the shady stuff that was going on during the Great Recession, 2007, 2008, and some of the fraud stuff that was related to that, which I knew a lot about, calling folks out, because that's a part of my journey when I was doing a lot of civil suits before I dealt with my unjust criminal stuff. They show connections between them and how some of those elements profited from that, and some of their connections to some allegedly blackmail former governor of California, Schwarzenegger, because they said that they put that over, they used it as an albatross over Schwarzenegger when they said that his dad had something to do with the Nazis or Germans or something. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but my understanding is they claim that one of the reasons why they was able to get over on him is because he started to call them out a little bit, Schwarzenegger as governor, and they utilized that. They used that over his head to try to get him to pull back. I mean, the rabbit hole was so deep. I had so many receipts. I'm bringing that up to say that, I'm going to say one more thing, and I want you to jump in with any of your thoughts. Jemele Hill, why am I bringing up her? She did a hit piece on Minister Farrakhan over the Jewish community before this, and called his work vile. Guess why she did it? Apparently, based on information and belief, allegedly, not so allegedly, she got her coattail. They pulled a coattail and told her to do this piece for The Atlantic on Minister Farrakhan, called his work vile in reference to the Jewish community. I'm bringing this up to say, where was all these folks when I was calling out these different elements of these folks? And now white folks all of a sudden, they're against us, the Candace Owens. Where were y'all at? You see what I'm saying? Like, this was not no one-off. You see what I'm saying? This was not a one-off in terms of the back-to-back series and calling them out. And then the history of the ADL, of course, many of them were known as spy organizations, to include the Black Civil Rights Movement. These elements, historically, Brother Richard, were said to have been spy movements for the state of Israel against Black Americans. During or around Jim Crow are those elements. So I'm saying, now all of a sudden, whenever we bring that, this is what I'm talking about, whenever I talk about white supremacy amongst white folks, then they want to hide behind that. When that was why we were bringing this up, we said, no, you guys were coming against the civil rights movement, and you were serving as spies and plants and a bunch of other stuff, and you was trying to stop Black folks, even in recent history, like the Nick Cannons of the world, using the Jemele Hills of the world, and on and on and on. What are your thoughts about some of this, and what would you like to say about some of those different moving parts that I just mentioned?
I think the penultimate point for me, and the older I've gotten, the more I've learned this, all roads lead back to white supremacy. The modern world as we know it is founded on colonialism. And even when colonialism has ended, it's now, financial organizations that suck the resources and the life, and the energy from continents and from people. And I'd add a couple of other casualties to that list you talked about. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Mark Lamont Hill made a speech calling out Israel, and he got pumped from his platform. Mehdi Hassan, although he's never really kind of admitted it, probably NDA, non-disclosure, whatever, Mehdi Hassan was clearly pumped from his platform because he called out Israel. And, the fact of the matter is, the reason why the UK and the US are besties with Israel is not, it is about shared values, but it's about whiteness. This is America's little white supremacist outpost in the so-called Middle East, surrounded by so-called hostile barbaric neighbors, even though these places in Africa and the Middle East have had culture and writing and mathematics for hundreds, thousands of years. They're the barbarians, right? Even though in Europe they were crawling around in caves until fairly sort of recently. I'm not making a racial point. I'm making a factual point. It was the Moors that came to Europe and taught the Europeans how to wash themselves, how to sanitize, how to not live with their animals, how to do X, Y, and Z. So really and truly, the way that I see this, because there are many Jewish people that are allies. Really, this is less about Judaism, nothing to do with Judaism, really, is it? Really, we know about that because of Israel, what it was founded on, how they treat black Jews. This is about white supremacy feeling a challenge to its power. And anyone who dares speak the truth about white supremacy is fair game, can be a target. I mean, even when, I mean, this is, I guess, conjecture. We're getting into the kind of allegedly area now. But I really believe that even when you have white supremacists themselves that go off script just a little bit, they get kept in check by the kind of power structure. You know, Israel has there was a very famous Israeli whistleblower by the name of Mordecai Vanunu. And this was an Israeli that blew the whistle on the fact that Israel has nuclear weapons. And Israel put him in prison. Remember the famous video of him walking by the camera and he had a statement about the reality on his hand. He flashed it in the cameras. He got silenced for whatever it was, 20 something years. So I've realized that kind of, you know, white supremacy will do anything to preserve itself.
Yes, it will.
White supremacy sees any threat, anything that's not white as a threat. And furthermore, we also learn that really this is, you know, I want to choose my words carefully here because white women, particularly in the southern states in America, were some of the most serious, biggest slave owners, right? The purveyors of such violence. However, you know, white supremacy is kind of it's like white male supremacy. They even turn on their own women when necessary. This is a poisonous ideology that will eat anything it views as a challenge for breakfast. They want to police your thought. They want to police your speech. And again, and your viewers will know this, we have the same thing in the UK. But this bullshit about free speech is nothing to do with free speech. It's about the freedom of whiteness to speak and act towards black people and non-white people, however it sees fit. And when people start to challenge that treatment, that's where the whole free speech argument came in.
That's a fact.
That's where the whole free speech argument came in. If it was really free speech, why are they policing black voices? Why do they censor black voices? And again, just you reminded me of something, Vicky, just back to the thing we were talking about earlier about the power of black intellectualism, black activism, the black spirit. Look what they did to those dear brothers and sisters in Ferguson after the lynching of Mike Brown. I've lost count of how many black activists were killed, silenced, maligned, marginalized, ostracized. You all know it. The list goes on and on and on.
That's a fact.
And it's because those activists, may God bless them.
Yes.
They were not just speaking for their people in Ferguson or even America. So powerful was their demand for racial justice that it went on to inspire people around the world. And that's what's a threat to America. There's not political organization is not really a threat to America. Black people coming together, whether they are on the right, whether they are on the left, whether they're independent, black people unifying around battling white supremacy is the biggest threat to America. It is the biggest threat to the UK. And it's actually the biggest threat now to the global hegemonic system that we have. And again, this is nothing new. The thing that Britain did was always to divide and rule. Divide and rule. So we see ourselves, rather than the ways that connect us, we see ourselves more separately than we do similar. So they ferment these divisions. You know, they ferment these differences. But really and truly, the common denominator that unifies all of us is that we are part of communities that have been subjugated historically and in the present day by white supremacy. And white supremacy doesn't even mean white people, as you know. It means anyone who subscribes to that ideology. So these things are not about religion. It's not about party political affiliation. There's no way to vote your way out of white supremacy. The game and the system is rigged. And I would imagine, and there probably are examples of this, whenever there have been black political candidates from any political party, but their central modus operandi is to challenge white supremacy, they get silenced or offed. And you have this with black cultural figures as well. I'm a big believer, and people may agree or disagree, I'm a big believer that people like Michael Jackson, people like Prince.
Come on.
Who was OJ's lawyer? What was his name?
Johnny Cochran.
Yeah, I really believe, and people can argue about those examples, but I believe these individuals, they might not have been explicitly saying we're against white supremacy, but they wanted economic ownership of their commercial enterprise. In the case of Michael Jackson, in the case of Prince,
yes,
in the case of Johnny Cochran.
Come on.
I believe, I might be wrong in this, but I believe Johnny Cochran was preparing a reparations lawsuit against the United States of America.
Yes, sir.
I mean, in the modern context, we have, and I have so much respect for this guy, and I love him. He's a beautiful brother. He's articulate. Rizza Islam, and he's young as well. I think he's much younger than me even. Like, you know, the power structure views these voices as a threat to their power. So this is what we're seeing spread out across America, Europe, the UK. They want to police our bodies. They want to police our minds. They want to police our thought. They want to police our art. They want to police our language. But ultimately, they'll fail. But this is really what we're seeing ricochet around the world right now.
Well, you brought up so many wonderful points. We've been here about an hour and a half now. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely on fire. Everything that you're saying. And this is important to me to hear from someone like yourself that's UK based, but to give us a global perspective. Of course, you talk about many international issues. You certainly talk about the travesty and the genocide that's happening to the Palestinian people as well, among many, many other topics. You've always been on call with those of us here in the United States of America. You always demanded reparations for the foundational Black Americans. But I think these stories is important for us to connect the dots with what's happening here and around the world. I am going to always be that one to do that, regardless to who or what. That's very important, and it's more important for me because I want people to hear your perspective. So when somebody like a brother Richard, who's based out of the UK, tells us, "Hey, y'all inspire what's happening there. You inspire movements around the world." I want to hear what he has to say, because we need to understand how our power is actually seen and activated and spread throughout the world. Yes, Darren Seals and others. When you brought up just now about the suspicious deaths of multiple Black Americans who were activists. And see, this is one of the things I got to say, and I brought up this point on Instagram, that I am not about being unnecessarily the aggressor. I am not about, just crazy violence, stuff like that. I don't spark or instigate unnecessarily different things like that. But I want people to understand something. We can't do much with scared to death Negroes nowadays. And so some of you are, when we discuss even the Darren Seals of the world, the problem with those brothers, which is why so many end up being dead, like burnt in their cars. Some of them were even, one or two were even said suspiciously like being hung or something like that. Those things, that those brothers carried a very raw energy that they were willing to sacrifice regardless to who or what. And enough of us, we don't have that. It's always supposed to be, if you're in a war, let me say it like this. If you're in a war, you got to act like you're in a war. No soldier is trained not to get shot at. What I'm saying is enough of us have to be willing. People will tell me about the young children and some of the wicked stuff, that some of the powers that shouldn't be engaged in some of these wicked things, and they sacrifice this and they sacrifice children, they sacrifice this. But none of y'all are telling me on the quote unquote righteous side what one or two of you are willing to sacrifice for the sake of the whole. That energy has to be in some of us. Everybody can't just be out here with this extracurricular safeness. That's from the dictionary, not the dictionary. I know extracurricular about outside and don't go with that, but I have to say it that way for a certain reason. Because this is the reason why so many of the powers that shouldn't be are able to punk us. And that's the reason why so many of us are still in the condition after hundreds of years, because enough of y'all ain't willing to pay that price. We don't like Harriet Tubman because she waited for a Civil Rights Act to be enacted. We don't appreciate the Denmark Vesey's and the Nat Turners of the world because they waited for official legislation for our freedom. That's not why we like them. That's not why we respect them. We say to them, how dare you legalize slavery and say don't break the law. You legalize Jim Crow. You legalized, you sanctioned by the state, apartheid and other such things. Who the hell are we to respect that? Who was that said that they said, was it Augustine, I believe they say, we accredit this statement to him, that an unjust law is no law at all. Now Tucker Carlson came out. I don't know if you saw this. I didn't watch the whole thing yet, but I saw enough of his speech recently. Now he upset. Again, white folks that's pretending like they weren't the ones that was bending down to Israel. And if other folks like mine that was questioning what they were doing to us because of our blackness in America, not even over there, but in America, y'all called us all kind of names. So now that Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, which I'm glad they're doing this, because guess what? I prophesied this long ago. When we stand up to do what's right, they're going to implode. So it's not always about us having weapon for weapon. You see, Brother Richard? It's not always having high-level position that they have or access to government. No, baby, you're going to self-implode. You're going to turn. They're going to end up being a weapon against themselves. And that's why they're freaked out right now. The fight, in my opinion, with Tucker Carlson and some of the rest of those that were traditionally in the white supremacist camp, known for that especially, they built up all this stuff that we're dealing with now, that they claim that they don't like now. And they're calling it by another name, you see. But what's happened is it's gone further than they thought. And they see the decline faster than they thought. You understand? So now they say it's the elites, which are multimillionaires. You're a multimillionaire. Oh, it's the elites. The beer belly so-called white folks that are in the trailer parks. You were the ones that was doing the lynchings, fool. You was the one that was still getting a better job, even if it was Home Depot. You understand? So let's not play like that wasn't you. You mad because they got more money. You understand? You're mad because they're now encroaching. So the thing will turn on itself. That's what I'm trying to get people to understand. The whiteness was still at the center of all of this. The sundown towns that still exist in the United States, where black folks are scared to this day still to go in certain areas, and we still cover stories like this on some of the other networks I'm on. Those aren't being done by billionaire, trillionaire elites. That's by them Yankees out there. That's y'all that's doing them sundown towns. That's y'all that's the sheriffs and stuff. So let's be clear. Certain ones are seeing that their world is ending, watch this, faster than others, and in ways that many of them didn't expect. So this is what the fight is with the infighting. I want you to give me your opinion on this and we'll get ready to go. What are your thoughts on Jimmy Kimmel? And don't force it if it's not there, but do you see that there is some sort of connection? Do you find it strange that Jimmy Kimmel's night show, they weren't talking about black folks getting reversed? They weren't talking about I don't know too many of them that's talking about the brothers that was lynched in Mississippi recently. I don't remember them talking too much about the Palestinians and genocide like that. I think they was defending the Democratic government and them, and they weren't talking so much about those topics. But now that he lost his job, black folks are out there defending this white man losing it. Oh God, it's serious now that he done lost his job. I get what they're saying, but give me your thoughts on it.
First of all, before I get to that, I just want to make a point really that like we are alive right now. We are so lucky to be alive in 2025. And I'm grateful for my life, Vicki. Yes. And everything that has been bestowed on me.
Come on.
And I always remember that, you know, my family history is in the UK and the Caribbean. There's a whole bunch of black family, black ancestors that went through a whole heap of hell for me to have the privilege I have of free speech. Slavery in my family was like 4 people ago. My dad's grandfather's grandmother was born in 1833 in Guyana, and she was born with the surname Chesney, a dark-skinned black woman with the name of Chesney, someone else's property. And I say that to say this. When we think about the struggle and the sacrifices made by our ancestors and by people even within our lifetime,
yes,
the minimum we can do is speak truth to power. We should really try and stop it with our hands if we see injustice. Yes. But the minimum we should do is at least use our voice. And what I think, back to your question, Vicki, about situations like Jimmy Kimmel, and from what I understand, I don't know, I don't really follow him too much. He seems like he was a decent, I hope he wasn't the guy that dressed up in blackface years ago. I think it might have been Jimmy Kimmel, actually. In which case,
sure,
I think it was Jimmy Kimmel. But regardless of that, like, people coming out and caping for white people that they perceive as allies, whether or not they are.
Right.
Yeah, he dressed up as Shaquille O'Neal or some madness. He apologized, X, Y, and Z. But to take the focus away from Jimmy Kimmel just for a minute. For me, look, personally, if you've worn blackface, that's the end of it for me. If you're Drake, if you're Jimmy Kimmel, that's nothing to be trifled with. But your broader point, Vicky, your broader point about black people putting on the cape for perceived white allies, I would say this: there's plenty of people in our own community that need to be shown allyship, but there's something else as well, Vicky, and I've been thinking about this a lot. There is what I think we call a boule class of black people in the UK, a privileged class of black people that are gatekeepers, that essentially work hand in hand with the dominant power structure. And one example that really irritates me, actually, because of his own history, is somebody who, Vicky, I believe you've been living rent-free in Roland Martin's head for many, many, many years. And I don't really want to make this about Roland, like Roland, whatever. But at the end of the day, there is a class of individuals that really deserve the smoke. There are people in our own communities that deserve our support. And for me, that just has to be the priority before anyone else. And I know there's some very good white allies out there, but you know, there's so many times over the years that I've been personally disappointed to see people that I believed were allies and they showed me their true colors. Bernie Sanders is one example. Anti-reparations, only just called Palestine a genocide. But who's that? Again, there's another one. There's this like older white woman who always does these experiments with groups of people in a class, and she's very articulate.
Jane Ellie,
that's the one.
Ellie, talk about it, brother.
That's the one. But you ask her what her view is on federal tax dollars going to black America. See how quickly they start mumbling, they start talking. It gets very, very awkward.
She got mad. She was mad, aggressive, hostile.
But ask these people, Vicky, should Jewish Americans and Jewish people get reparations? I personally think, yeah. Should Japanese Americans have got reparations? I personally think, yeah. Should Alaskans, should Native Americans? I personally think, yeah. But you ask these people that are so anti-reparations for black people, what they feel about those other groups receiving reparations, and you see the truth reveal itself before your eyes. And again, we circle back. We come back to the common denominator. Even people on the so-called left, even people on the so-called progressive left, even people, white supremacy is the common unifier. And there are different levels of it. And I always also make the analogy of, you know, and I respect them. You know, there were millions of white people in the crowds for the Black Lives Matter protests in the UK. Wonderful to see anybody coming out. But I often wonder, beyond waving the placard, beyond going out for the day and feeling good about it, are you willing to jeopardize your friendship to stand up for black people? Are you willing to jeopardize your employment? Are you willing to lose that sponsorship deal? Are you willing to alienate yourself from relationships? Are you willing to lose financially? Because if not, then it's really just smoke and mirrors. So I think, to circle back to your initial question, Vicky, I don't really know the ins and outs too much about Jimmy Kimmel. I know that a lot of people perceive him as an ally. He also has a history. I think the priority for now has to be us. And it doesn't mean we don't stand on the side of justice, of righteousness, anywhere. You know, anywhere we see injustice, we need to call it out. But we need to stop. Too many of us are so desperate to cozy up to the dominant system. And this, for me, is why Roland Martin is such a embarrassing, undignified, ungraceful, desperate individual. He's never, ever, ever going to get into the White House.
Ever. On the lawn.
These people are laughing at you. This is the kind of individual Harriet Tubman would have just left behind and said, you know what, you need to do all your internal shit, you know? And he's of Haitian descent. They must be spinning in their grave. Ancestors. They must be spinning in their grave.
Come on.
Talking about, all the, and I don't make it particularly about him, but I'm just going to say this, Vicky. All the crap he gave you, Tariq, who is it, Professor Black Truth? Okay.
Yes.
But then you see his view on reparations, and Roland Martin's entire argument is, oh, we've got to get the Democrats in.
Exactly.
Joe Biden got voted in. And
That's
what
right.
happened to that train? That veered off the rails. The meeting he was meant to have. I remember this stuff, Vicky. I come with receipts too. I remember Biden promising to go and meet with Ice Cube.
Yes.
Legend has it, Ice Cube is still waiting for the text.
You better preach. That is so good. Everything that you just said. And one of the things I want to say really quick, and the reason why I brought him up is because that has to do with the power of media and how quickly we forget. I said something on Instagram recently to a brother with a pretty large platform. He's an educator. He's a Black educator. And he was saying that, oh, now that this has happened, he did a post on Jimmy Kimmel, and said, now this happened to him. This is serious. Now this should tell you something. Well, yes, it tells us that white folks are turning in on each other in a way that many of you all haven't seen. This is a way that's so obvious and undeniable. Yes, it's a big deal. Yes, there's a level of injustice related to the system that's pushing him. And that, yes, it is serious in their world. But what I'm saying is, and I'm making this point on purpose, we wonder why we're powerless. But that's not a brother that even liked on half of, that's not even a brother, I don't believe, that would even be, that would even like on one of my posts, let alone comment on it ever on any day. And I'm bringing this up because if we don't stand with each other as a unified Black voice, then no wonder we're powerless. No wonder we can't push the initiatives that we want to, because we're not even supporting each other. Charlie Kirk was a dropout, but they brag about him going to all these colleges and universities. I, with little to no resources, do you know, for many years, have sponsored Black students at HBCUs, given money for scholarships for years and past, the distant past, and in the recent present. You don't hear enough of us talk about why aren't we bringing in alternative voices like Vicki Dillard to talk to some of those colleges and universities. And I put my money where my mouth is as it relates to that. You understand? And we don't value those voices, and we don't have a strong enough push, but they understand that that's where the power base served. That's why he's so powerful. It wasn't because he was some brilliant guy. When I look at some of the arguments that he did, he was losing every single one of them. That was just a way for him to get interest into the mind of the youth and start certain chapters. But we don't see each other like that. Instead, we say, well, who is Vicki? Fool, your mama is who I am. For real, literally. The keys to the colors. All peoples and all nations. And that is exactly the problem, is that we don't highlight enough of our voices. Now, here you got the former press secretary of the United States, Karine Jean-Pierre. You know, she blocked me on a couple personal platforms. She real bad emails and stuff. We heard from Brother Richard, people that actually on at CNN, MSNBC, a reporter called my phone. These people reached out. Mad about what little old Vicki over in the corner with a laptop saying about it. That goes back to the spirit of what you said, what it might inspire amongst people. That's why they consider us to be dangerous. Now, if I'm using those few people on a regular basis as an example, many others, why do I bring that up? Because if they're concerned about our possible and plausible impact, the problem is we don't see, you understand, our power. So when something happens like that to a Jimmy Kimmel, we see it so demonstrative, and then we give it attention and we give it platform, but you're not over here supporting anything that your sister is doing so that we can grow and accrue, you understand, empower amongst each other, because they're not talking about stuff that you're interested in. They're not talking about the things that actually pertain to you in any real way. And then we sit up and say, well, who are you that we should even listen to? And you wonder why we're as powerless as we are. Now, I'm saying one more point here. Jimmy Kimmel, and just like Joy Reid, when she was on MSNBC, Black folks in different circles was tripping because Joy lost her job. What do I care about Joy losing her job? Here's why I say that. Joy literally in 2019 put up a chart attacking FBAs with FBA on it. And any of these groups that you see that's pro-reparations and tells you not to vote for the Democrats targeting us. That's the guest that she brought on her show, among others, in that group. These people, day after day, week after week, continue to use their platforms, Brother Richard, to undermine us and to silence issues that should have been talking about, including but not limited to the genocide amongst the Gazan folk. Now Joy is making little whispers now that she off MSNBC. She wasn't using that platform for that stuff. You are literally actively attacking it. Anybody that said anything about it, especially anybody that said anything about Joe Biden, his connection to any of that kind of stuff, they made excuses for it. And this is what I want to call Black looking people out for, is that when you all had those platforms, you were not using them for us. The same with Roland Martin, like you said, it's not about him as an individual. I talk about him because he serves as a proxy, you understand, to power and to the establishment, and specifically to the Democrat Party and their agenda against us, because Roland's name is a name that came up in the WikiLeaks release. A lot of folks didn't know that. And the behind the scenes stuff he was doing with the Hillary Clinton campaign. While he's smiling in your face and making you think he's his brother, how come more of those folks aren't making that the headline and his role after he retracted his initial denial? He retracted it when they realized they had more emails on him. And of course, that's why CNN didn't bring it back. And even somebody who is a Zionist, anti-Black entity on CNN, Jake Tapper, he even called out Roland because they were colleagues at the time. So I'm bringing these things up to say it's up to us to recognize our power with these types of platforms and to support and to promote such platforms if you ever expect our voices to grow in power. Yes, give us your final words. Let us know how we can reach you, and we'll end the broadcast.
Real talk, Vicki. I'll start from where you ended it, which is everyone watching already supports you, but share Vicki's work to people that are not Vicki Dillard supporters. Share the Tariqs, the Professor of Black Truth, all the amazing Black grassroots media, independent activists. And why is that so important? You know, slavery ended, but the power dynamic, the system remained intact. Now, one of my heroes is Malcolm X, El-Haj Malik Shabazz, rest in power. And, you know, people always talk about Malcolm, the activist. I love to think about Malcolm, the intellectual, Malcolm, the scholar. And in my opinion, one of Malcolm's most important contributions to Black scholarship and wider intellectualism generally is the following analogy. Malcolm talked about the difference between the field Negro and the house Negro.
You better come on.
And he said it in the 1960s.
Come on.
And the analogy is as relevant as it's ever been today. So I say that to say this. And I don't want to name too many names, but if we think about the Roland Martins, the Candace Owens, and by the way, I don't give a shit if all of a sudden, because her money got damaged, now she's saying some of the right stuff.
Yes.
We need to keep receipts on these people.
Yes.
We need to be consistent. In my view, we need to be unforgiving. Some people have a view of, well, you know, let's leave the front door open a little bit in case they want to come on home. For me, certain things are unforgivable. And the Black boule bourgeoisie kind of media class, the gatekeepers, I view them as, in some cases, more dangerous than card-carrying white supremacists.
That's a fact.
Because the great trick of white supremacy was to put a few of us who look like us with a darker skin tone in various positions of power. And actually, that can be one of the most damaging aspects of white supremacy and the information war that we talked about, Vicki.
That's a fact.
So I will just double down and re-emphasize what you said about the importance, the necessity of new Black, independent Black media, but also not just like the necessity of it. We've seen so many indications of how powerful it is. Roland Martin has lost sleep over you, Vicki.
Yeah, come on.
Lost sleep over you. You know what I mean? He's sweated over. Is Vicki going to text? What's she going to do? You know, where these people fear the truth. They know in their heart of hearts they've sold out. I don't know what internal conversations they have to delude themselves, to justify it. Is it just the money? But Roland Martin should have known that as soon as he lost his relevance, he was dropped quicker than a bad habit.
Yes, he did indeed.
He was dropped. And our moment is now. And ultimately, a lot of these gatekeepers, I think it's jealousy. You know, they don't want us around in particular spaces because the fact of the matter is, when your analysis, when your objectives, when your love of your community is grounded in truth and historical fact and justice and a brighter future, that inside you is more powerful than any measly work they can conjure up, any platform they can get a little bit of money from, any endorsement they can get from any president. Our conviction, which is rooted in historical truth and justice and we want to change things for the better, there is no antidote to that. You can have the APACs, you can have the sellout class in the mainstream media. Not only are they losing the power, and they will lose in the long run, they are fully aware of our power and our significance and our relevance and how we've got the ear of our communities. We can mobilize people, Vicky, not them. Not them. I mean, look at how you guys have mobilized around Rally for Reparations in DC. You've got your Hidden History Museum. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that I haven't even talked about. And these sellout house Negroes, they're aware of this. And I don't really care about their tortured little souls anymore. I care about the victims of white supremacy. I care about the younger generations. I care about the Black community in the UK. All non-white communities in the UK, and beyond that, the global diaspora. So that's why, Vicky, and I'll land on this. I'm so very proud of some of the amazing contributions made by Black people in the UK and the Caribbean, you know, Trinidadians, where my family come from. I'm so proud of what they've done for me to be alive and to have my freedom. But I recognize the contributions and the importance of our family over in the US. And it wouldn't be right to not acknowledge the strides, you know, the contributions that you guys have made over the years. So, you know me, Vicky, I'm all about unity, coming together. Yeah, we have our own individual struggles, but we must never be divided. We don't put the cape on for people that wouldn't do the same for us, but we recognize our own struggles, but we build where we can. Like you and I, Vicky, we are never going to agree on every single issue, right? We probably agree on most stuff, but we're not going to agree on every single thing. But I'm a big believer that we find the common ground and we push that, and it's so much more powerful. This is why I love music, and I performed a lot, and I make music because, you know, words are powerful. That's why they called it spelling. First it was the word. You know what I mean? And so, you know, this is why I believe in, a bit like you, Vicky, I believe in utilizing every God-given platform that I have to do something for my communities, and beyond that, the wider diaspora community. And I'll land on that, Vicky.
I love it so much. And God bless you and your work. God has blessed you in your work, and may you continue it. It is very important that we continue to hear what's happening around the world. I cannot emphasize that enough. It is very, very important. I appreciate you because you respect FBA. You promote our issues here, but there is no doubt a connection. And because I talk about international issues, that does not mean I abandon my own or that I don't properly prioritize, but it is indisputable and undeniable. And I would be crazy and out of my mind. The whole planet initially belonged to us. And I would be crazy and out of my mind to just cede all the world to a white supremacist. No, not I, said the cat. I'm not going to do that. Family, my team has put the link in the chat for you all to get my replay from this past Monday. It was almost 4 hours long. It's very, 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 very important. But you all know I do a lot of free webinars, but the information is heavy, where I am quoting from some high-level sources. But most importantly, I'm giving you all divine transmissions that I had even before, again, this whole Charlie Kirk murder. You all know that I was connecting the dots between the domestic civil war, what Trump is doing, but also some connections. I make some connections, brother, to this previous civil war that's just unmatched, related to Netanyahu and his people back in the day. I bring it up to speed on the Civil War stuff that happened, of course, in the United States, and that direct connection between lynching, spirituality, as well as these different entities that's operating is too heavy to talk about here. So when folks hear me talk about, well, Vicky, I didn't know this, how you know, baby. I don't mind folks misunderstanding me. I let them treat me like the underdog and, you know, get blown out every single time. That's just how we get down. But I know that I'm created for a unique purpose. And if you want to tap into that, remember, we talked about the power of the information war. We talked about why these major corporations and entities are fighting for your data, for your information. And to be honest, let's be clear. Information is so important. Israel is probably the world's #1 spy and snooper illegally, and some old shady stuff that they're doing. In fact, my understanding was, Brother Richard, I'm not going to get off on this because it's a whole different subject. One of the things about the Israelis that folks are tripping out about, and some of this, most folks aren't talking about mainstream media, about some reports that are coming out. You know, Netanyahu, he just left the United States, or just was here, I think. This is his 4th time since Trump been in office. You know, Trump only been in office. He took office January. And I talked about the fact that Biden made so many trips to Israel after he refused to even meet with Netanyahu. Do you all know that was it yesterday or just this morning, Netanyahu just testified in his criminal trial? I said, as we speaking, y'all, the past, I think within 24 hours of me talking to you right now, Netanyahu is over there giving a testimony to his criminal trial. He has 3. He's been dealing with criminality for some years now. He's managed to delay it, and a lot of his own people have been hitting the streets as we speak. I was listening to some of their testimony before we came on, and they're calling for the war to end in Gaza, even though a lot of them settlers over there, I don't know why we call them settlers, because they make them look cute, but those folks, them are terrorists over there, taking land and taking more land and just wild and crazy and murderous, just like Netanyahu. That's the reason why they was able to do that much. But see, again, they see their world is ending faster than they expected. Some of them want to go to beaches, brother, Sudan in peace, and they can't do that. The Israelis want to go on vacation, and they see that they normal vacation spots. The people looking at them like, get them out of here. They see people that have passports, they say, this is good for everybody but them damn Israelis. I'm telling you all, this is real talk. This is the kind of stuff I talk about in detail offline in my webinars, family. Y'all know Israel does not have an official constitution. Why don't we talk about that more? I don't understand that. We love to talk about all these other countries that's supposed to be so crazy, you know, so archaic, so primitive and all this kind of stuff, but they're not telling you the real reason why Israel doesn't have a constitution. I make those points for a reason. I tell you there's a reason why in my webinars, why Israel just commandeered Mount Hermon, took it out of the control of UN troops and some of the others in the area. Vicki, what are we talking about that for? Some of y'all don't know that there's actual metaphysical connections to that mountain. And it's more than them just talking about for warfare and spying on the Palestinians. Some of them are over there actually digging up information that some of you all don't understand is about a spiritual, metaphysical knowledge and information. Some of you don't know that's one of the reasons why we invaded Iraq. Iraq is ancient Babylon, and how Hussein spent money to build up that wall so that the outsiders wouldn't be able to infiltrate the information that they had from what they considered to be a Stargate. This real information, y'all. This ain't no woo-woo talk. And Brother Richard, I'm going to say this. Do you know that Iran, which is ancient Persia, do you know that they're said to have had a Stargate there, and that we're aware of some of the information? And so one of the reasons why they keep trying to take out their scientists is not just because of this threat of nuclear weapons that they lying about, but there's some other ancient sacred knowledge that ain't no woo-woo that mainstream media won't talk to you all about. Why do you all think that Smostrich and some of the others are fighting over their ability to go pray in a common spiritual place that was never none of theirs? It wasn't Islam's initially. It wasn't Christianity. It wasn't Jews. It belonged to the ancient Black Vatican, who much of the world was influenced by your ancient Black mothers that were known as the Sibyls, the true original Black Vatican. And that area and much of the known world was under their control, and they ruled the world well and were responsible for multiple untold golden ages. Why are they important now? Because of their power throughout the world. Major government leaders didn't make major decisions without talking to them, including the military. And guess what? They ruled the world well, Brother Richard, without murdering masses of people, without stealing their lands. They did so in a just manner. It's not about a gender war. It's about the cosmic order of things. So that's the reason why, last thing, when Israel, after October the 7th, 2023, Brother Richard, you and I did an interview together, didn't we? A few weeks after that, you remember? Right after that, you came on my show. I played a video for you because I told you I just so happened to watch a Forbes business interview. That don't even make sense for me to be sitting there and it's an Israeli businessman right after October 7th. And remember, I played it for you and I asked you, had you heard about this? You said you hadn't heard about it before, but you said what was not unfamiliar to you was this notion that there was an economic agenda for them raising all of Palestine, right? This urgency to hurry up and do that was interconnected to a financial thing. But when I heard this businessman say that, I'm bringing this up for a reason, that there was a reason, family, that the ancient oracles, whoever just said they were the oracles. Yes, they were known as the oracles. That's right. And they were the original Vatican. Vatican means divining serpent. That's what that word Vatican means. The actual literal place in Italy where the Vatican situated was literally a place where they used to prophesy, that actual literal geographical location. And so this is very important because we got to get back to some of that divine energy, because that's what ruled the world, you understand, and brought the world back into balance. And so a lot of the stuff that we see popping up with regions, warfare from every religion and all places of the planet is directly or indirectly connected. At this last point that I was going to make, after you came on my broadcast a few weeks after October 7th, month or so after, it was not too far after, what was happening in Israel when they were planning on their all-out open genocide against the Palestinian people that they had been doing over the decades, but just all out open. They were pumping up the IDF, getting ready to go murder them. And what did they say in the video when they brought in this famous Israeli singer? Y'all, this is why you got to come to my webinars. What did he say, y'all? He started singing to the IDF. IDF is the Israeli Defense Forces family. That's their soldiers that were preparing to go in. So to pump up their soldiers to go murder the Palestinians, guess what he said, y'all? And that video was shadow banned when I put it on Instagram a year or something ago first. They said, Gaza, you black woman. Gaza, you be. Gaza, you whore like your mother. Gaza, you trash. Gaza, you huge trash. You better ask yourself why in the hell would the Israelis intuitively, like second nature, scream out to pump up their invasion of this land in an all-out open way? Why would they call their closest, quote unquote, adversary and enemy within proximity? Gaza, you black woman. This.
Let me tell you, Vicki, can I?
Oh, yeah. We'll end it off your last comments.
These white supremacists, they hate black people more than they love themselves. They hate black people and blackness more than they have love for themselves. And what you said, Vicki, was so on the money. I remember that conversation we had in 2023, and I remember discussing that article with you. I don't know if your viewers know this, if it even really made the headlines too much, but Smotrich, the finance minister in Israel, he just gave an interview yesterday, I believe, and he's talking about the money that can be made from leveling Gaza.
Yes. Yes.
He's talking about urban renewal.
Yes.
And in tandem with that, I just made a video about this. There is videos of buildings just being completely demolition to the ground now.
Come on.
So we all know not only is this never about the hostages, the hostages families hate Netanyahu because Netanyahu has scuppered several deals to bring them home. This is not about terrorists because you don't massacre. And by the way, it's a lot more. What is the official figure? 60,000. In actuality, the real figure is,
and even that's low.
Yeah, it's closer to 100 or 200,000 or maybe more. But Smotrich, other organizations, and I believe Tony Blair, the former prime minister of the UK, a war criminal. We talked about Iraq. Tony Blair should be in prison. Yeah. His organization allegedly was being sent memos in conversations about how to develop this Gaza commercial Riviera after they've massacred and forcibly removed the indigenous people. They want to set up a playground for the elite, a playground for the rich. And we see with the siege now on Gaza City, this is what the plan is. And it's not going to stop with Gaza. It won't stop with the West Bank. The plan is much wider than that. So everybody has a vested interest, really.
Richard, you got to do an article on that. Forgive me for cutting you out, but you got to write about that. I asked you about that a few weeks after this happened in our broadcast. Yeah. I played you what that is ready. And that's basically what now you're like you're saying, now it's coming out more, all this stuff. I'm telling you, he slipped up and said it. And it was in the most unconventional way because this was about his business, remember, on a Forbes business clip. And I told you, Spirit just led me to watch it. And I said, I'm on Brother Richard coming on. I want to know his opinion about, can you imagine? And this was right after that. So they got all these plans. You got to write about this so I can use it.
For sure. 100%. It's a heartbreaking tragedy what's happening to those people. I've never seen anything like it. And a lot of people say, well, you know, there's a lot of injustices around the world. There's a lot of genocides. And there are, you know, we can talk about Sudan and Congo. And I've tried my best to shed as much light on that as I can. But the thing that is so grotesque, it's all grotesque. But the thing that is so vile about what's happening to the Palestinians is it's just done by the government. These are not militia groups carrying out the genocide. This is the government. This is the so-called most moral army in the world. And what makes it worse, in fact, why we have a responsibility in the same way we have a responsibility around demanding accountability for police brutality, reparations, we have a responsibility to demand this genocide ends, because it is funded with our money. The weapons are manufactured in the UK. The tax dollars come from the US.
Come on.
It's our countries that are propping this up. This is being done in our name. This is a legalized genocide being carried out by a government. And what's so revolting is it's not just the government. You know, even our leaders frame them as, well, you know, blah, 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 blah. But at least they're the region's only democracy, right? They're you know, if any other country was doing this, China, Iran, Russia, you know, in fact, you know, when the Ukrainian people are massacred, they have no problem calling out Russia. Rightly so, because I'm personally against any military occupation, period. But for this, you know, the pass is given. The green card is given. And it's given because Israel, again, is just a white supremacist, ethno-nationalist kleptocracy, and they love it the same way they love what the Europeans did in Australia, the same way they love what the Europeans did in the Americas, and all across the Caribbean and elsewhere. They massacred the Arawaks, the Caribs, all across the Caribbean. These people are all for it. And again, you know, and the late, great Dr. Francis Cress Welsing talked about this, but a large part of it is, of course, fear of genetic annihilation. That's business is driving this, but it's the fear of genetic annihilation that is driving this too. A whole bunch of factors. But when we see the plans to build a new kind of financial commercial Riviera in Gaza, while the bodies of the Palestinians are still warm under the rubble, is something I can't compute, and our communities can't compute and get our heads around, because it's just not in our nature to move like that. You know, yes, there's been other empires, sure, and I'm not ever going to say any of them were good. But if we look at purely through the lens of body count, Vicky, if we look at the Anglo-American empire, European colonialism, if we talk about 2 points, the body count, you're talking about directly and indirectly with the British Empire, hundreds of millions of people being killed. Let's be clear about that. And the second point about European empires is the sheer brutality, often just for the sake of it. I mean, it's one thing to colonize a people, take their country, take their bodies, take their resources. Some of the sheer violence that just didn't need to be done, but was done for sport. This is a phenomenon we haven't seen before. We won't see it since. And this is why white supremacy rallies around Israel, because they view Israel just like them. And they're correct. It's nothing to do with religion. That's why millions of Jews are nothing to do with religion.
Nothing to do with religion. Fam, this is so powerful. Whoever just asked about what about the young man that was hung in Mississippi, I started the broadcast talking about that. So don't jump into a 2-hour broadcast and come in at the last minute like you're teaching me something. But let me tell you all something. One of the reasons why, in addition to my international commentary that I do on a regular basis that has to do with the Black diaspora, one of the things that I think that makes the situation with Israel and the Palestinians, the West Bank, Gaza, this entire area, whatever term we want to use in different areas, of course, they're literally, as we're talking, which I've done webinars on this, they're invading 7 countries while we're talking, y'all. So as an excuse for what they claim that they're doing with them. But this is what makes this issue interesting to me. The divine would have it so that this would get way more attention, I believe, in this moment, because I see Israel as a shell country. Not company. I see Israel as a shell country that is a mask and a veneer for the United States to work behind, because many of you all may or may not know, they're the ones that are responsible for committing all kinds of ungodly government coups, assassinations around the world. But these are some of the same exact forces that's at work in all of the different places around the world, and their mask is coming off. So by being so much emphasis on them, which is why they're freaking out that the so-called right and other folks, they know where it could lead to, even though their motives are still anti-Black. The very forces that claim that they're against Israel now is still going to expose and pull off another layer of this place that we call Israel and this entity that operates through Zionism. Do you all understand? But this same entity, believe it or not, know it or not, is the one that's been uncovered and at work literally around the world. And I believe that that's one of the main reasons why the divine is allowing them to get a level of attention that they normally have not, because this is the group that has been masked as good and righteous in many instances, quote unquote, God's chosen people. But you didn't understand how they were operating covertly, literally around the world. And I believe that that's a major of major importance. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Those of you all that said about the importance of this, and they said this is the mother of all universities, I'm glad that you tapped in. And when people laugh and they wonder what the hell is going on, the powers that shouldn't be know who they should fear. They know who the problems are. But as it's written, one can put 1,000 to flight, 2, 10,000. So when we support each other, we become a formidable force that they are not able to withstand. The more of us that begin to come together to understand our power, even in its incipiency. Yes, we want to give Brother Richard a big shout out. Tell us how we can reach you, dear brother, and we'll end it here. Thank you so much for your presence. Everything you said was fire, 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 and some more fire. And we're so pleased for your profound insights. We're so pleased for your profound words and support. So let us know how we can reach you. Yes. And what you got going on next. Yes.
I just want to say, Vicki, I really appreciate the invitation onto your platform. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to speak to you and engage with your wonderful audience. Me and many others, and there are many people in the UK that love your work, Vicki. We appreciate you. We are here to support your work, and we are here for the family in the US and across the world. Yeah. Regarding me, my name is Richard Sudan, S-U-D-A-N. Yes, like the African country. I'm not hard to find. Twitter, Instagram, just Google me, connect, get in touch. What am I working on? I'm working on a bunch of stuff really for Black History Month. So your Black History Month is in February, I believe.
Yes,
yours
that's right.
February, right? So we have ours in October. So I'm just preparing a lot of content really to speak about how some of the elders in our community in London and elsewhere, how they rallied and fought the system and had certain victories and how they organized. And I'm trying to prepare a bunch of content to really inspire everybody, but particularly the younger members of our audience. And yeah, other than that, Vicki, just doing what I do, you know?
I'm glad you're back out there, your voice more than ever before, because you work with so many powerful UK-based organizations, groups. And like you said, you have your own thing going, and you made it clear that your views are not necessarily those of some of the people that you publish for, you write for, but your insight, I think, is so profound. So I'm so happy. Keep it going. I love when I see messages that you got popped up, because I learned so much from you, which is why I'm pressing you to hurry up and do an article so I can use it officially, because it helps as a receipt for my work. So when something that is powerful and I know the information can be trusted, it's easier for me sometimes when I'm able to have it in sort of a, even if it's several pages, it's still considered for me to be concise, because I'm able to utilize it in a certain way, both here and most importantly offline. A lot of folks were saying, you know, talking about some of my stuff. Well, we do allow the details of this for obvious reasons, family, offline. And so we want you to connect with me at the Vicki Dillard Mystery School, my website, Vicki Planet. If you want to get your mini gavels, y'all. If you want to get your luxury magazine of mine that just came out, which I'm so excited about, it's so yummy. Get it for the woman in your life. Ladies, get it, of course, for yourself, but brothers, get it for the lady in your life, your girlfriend, your baby mama, your auntie. Get yours today. Go to my website at VickiPlanet.com. All this information is there. And of course, I'll give you any other updates related to our dear brother. Of course, this certainly won't be our last. And I can't wait until I actually touch down there in the UK. And of course, we'll connect, inshallah, in due course. Yes, thank you so much for coming on. I bow to you. This was more than amazing. Yes, thank you, audience. We'll see you soon. Share this broadcast. Yes, I can't wait to see you again. Good night.